Hey, everybody. CBN has just released a new documentary called Investigating the Supernatural Miracles. You can watch it on CBN.com. CBN News investigative journalist Billy Hallowell goes into the claims and evidences of modern day miracles. And Billy's joining me today to talk about a film, a documentary that's getting great reviews and prompting a lot of conversation. Stay tuned.
I got out of my patrol car and I slipped.
I went from having a promising career as a neuroscientist to having a medical death sentence.
I said there was nothing else that we could do. There was no heartbeat.
Time of death, 8:05.
Are miracles real? Do they happen today? Let's investigate.
A lot of skeptics will say, well, miracles are impossible. Why? Because they violate the laws of nature. You can't violate the laws of nature.
People would pray for me, and sometimes it felt like this power that just zapped me.
He's dead. It's over. I said, shock him one more time.
Well, maybe it happens. Maybe it doesn't. Let's look at the evidence.
Billy Hallowell, thank you so much for being with us today at X Psychic Saved. It's not the usual to be on this side of the interview part of this thing. You're usually interviewing me.
I was going to say this is a weird switch. Usually it's the other way around, but I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. This is actually a great documentary, Billy. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But I have a few questions for you about it. Well, one, could you tell my viewers, my audience, a little bit about this documentary?
Yeah, this project, Investigating the Supernatural Miracles, it started about 2 summers ago. We started talking about different ideas of looking at the supernatural and the things we see in scripture and whether or not they're playing out today and what that looks like. And, so we started filming in October of 2023, and we went around the entire country really, and we found we set the bar really high on finding stories that we felt without a doubt were some of the most ironclad, really just miracle stories, or at least appeared to be miracle stories. And then we went in and we investigated and we provided all of the evidence, whether it was medical evidence, whether it was interviews with the people who had been through it, faith leaders. We brought in theologians to kind of talk through what do miracles mean? How does that work? And we brought these 3 main stories together. There's a couple of other stories around them, but there's really 3 at the center of the documentary. And again, I mean, it was really kind of eye-opening to go around and dig into these stories. And I took a skeptical lens, even though I'm a Christian and I believe that miracles are possible. I wanted to go in skeptically to really put together the information and let people decide for themselves what they believe about these particular cases.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love the use of journalism and film to point people to Christ. It's so important, especially in such a turbulent time of, in our world. So many anxieties are going crazy, depressions. We're seeing so much happening on the big scale, but also the microcosms of our life, Billy. And of course, we can do no thing apart from God. I love that this documentary actually points to the sovereignty of God. Is that something that stood out to you as well?
It did. I spent a lot of time thinking about miracles and those who don't get miracles, because I think all of us, no matter who we are and what our journey has been in life, we have had moments that we haven't gotten things that we prayed for, that we've begged God, whether it was a healing, whether it was, so you have these 2 sides. You have people who are having these incredible things happen that can't be explained. How do you explain a brain tumor disappearing without any medical intervention, right? And then you have these people who are struggling because they've been begging God for something and they haven't received it. And so understanding the trust that we have to have in God and his plans, I've often said, and I've thought about this a lot, we have a guy in the film, and you've seen it, Jen, so who was dead for 40 minutes and essentially brought back to life. And that case was so crazy and wild. But I look at that and I think, well, Lazarus was raised from the dead in the Bible, but he died again eventually, right? So even the miracles, they eventually run out for us in life. Like you're not going to live forever, right? So, but that's not to diminish the fact that these amazing things do happen. So you have to balance those things. And I think that's tough for people.
And that's kind of something that I was talking about in the intro, Billy, because the supernatural in and of itself is extremely intriguing. Let's be honest about it. people, they perk up when something huge happens, something big happens, and it's above nature. Yet we also know that the demonic forces are at large, and demons do have powers to do things on this earth. And in this time, right? So we have to be so discerning. And what I love about the stories in this documentary is that you can clearly see everything pointing back to the Lord. And that is how we need to test the spirits, right? We really need to be testing the spirits. And I love that you went in there skeptically, because you're kind of going in there testing the spirits to get gauge it for yourself, to say, all right, let's see, is this a God thing? Is this a demon thing? Is this somebody just with wishful thinking? I
Yeah.
mean, but I saw the Lord through this movie. Tell me what your thoughts were going into making this all this time ago, and then coming out of it.
Yeah, that's been a little bit convicting, because I went into this believing that miracles were possible. I'm a Christian my whole life. I hadn't seen any radical miracles in front of me, like somebody walking again when they've been paralyzed, or the brain tumor disappearing, but I've seen little miracles. And I've actually had a lot of moments. I was in an interview the other day and I don't get emotional. I'm not a very emotional. I don't cry a lot. It's just not something that happens to me, right? But I got emotional a few times because there have been so many layers, and it's almost a hard question to answer. There's the theological, personal layer of how I feel now about miracles and how I feel about how I would respond in a situation. And then there's the personal with just my daughter and some of her health issues that, as we were filming this, were playing out, and we were seeing what I believe are miracles unfold at that same time. And so for the first thing, when it comes to the theological, I went in with this heart knowledge and really believing that miracles were possible, but I went in skeptically. And I think if I were to have had a terminal illness, or a loved one did, I would have prayed and believed and, gone to the Lord. But I think I would have probably given up a lot sooner before this project. I probably would have said, okay, well, God, it's time for me to go and whatever. I think I would have gotten to that point. After going through this, the thing that stuck out the most with these three stories, I think about the woman in Mark 5 who's reaching out for Jesus desperately to get healing. She's been bleeding for 12 years. She's given up all of her money, and you see this has been a long, drawn out process of seeking healing. And she finally gets it when she touches him and he feels the power go out of him. And it's just kind of like beautiful narrative. And that's kind of the story of all of these people in this documentary. They did not get an instant healing. It was a journey. It was 10 years. It was multiple years. And again, we deal with the fact that not everybody gets that miracle that they want. But I think the point is, I left it feeling like next time, if God forbid anything happened, I would fight till the very end. Even if I died and I didn't get that miracle that I wanted, I would believe it until the very end and fight for it. And I wouldn't have had that fight before this project. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I'm with you on that. I think that it encourages us to stay steadfast in prayer and to continue to ask, seek, and knock, honestly, because we can get very downtrodden. We could think that, okay, this is just it. No, keep going, keep looking for the healing, keep asking the Lord for the healing, and on behalf of others as well. And having said that, let me use that as a segue. That, see, for me, this is not a movie about the sign gifts. For me, it was not a movie about the sign gifts, okay? So for those of you out there who know me, this is not a conversation about the sign gifts. This is a movie that points to who our God is and what he does. And I alluded to, I'm evidence of this. And that was something I expressed to you when I had first started watching the movie. I was like texting Billy, like, oh my gosh, and I'm writing notes, and I'm like, and I said, how could I say that God doesn't do those things when I'm living proof of it? And without getting too much into that, just I've been through a very traumatic experience that there was no scientific evidence for me to actually be sitting here today. Zero. And a woman told me that it was a very traumatic experience, and a woman who was on the team medically to help me, that's what I'm going to say, said to me, baby, you're a miracle of God. There's no reason for you scientifically to be alive.
Wow.
Boom.
Wow.
Okay, so for me, that's, but here's the thing, Billy, let me go here with you for a second. Do you think that there are sects, SECTS, because you know my accent, of people that kind of make it hard for us to look into this because they're overdoing it. They're kind of like the pendulum swung all the way over here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some very hyper charismatic movements, and they're doing like these big productions and making everything this big, huge thing. That could make somebody tentative
Oh,
about
yeah.
this. It could like ruin it, you know.
It can ruin it. No,
Yeah.
I mean, you have people, you have one extreme that says there's nothing's happening, this doesn't happen anymore, right? And then you have this other extreme that does what you just described and makes it weird for people. These are already difficult subjects. I find it really interesting when you dive into the polling on this, and we looked at some of this and presented some of it in the film. The majority of Americans traditionally believe, and not just Christians, that miracles are possible and still happen today. Well, why do they believe that? Because they're experiencing or seeing something, or somebody they know has, that points them to that. That's really interesting. But when you make it strange or weird, since it's already a difficult topic, people don't even want to talk about it or address it. And I think you end up, because of that dynamic, in this weird situation. And we've talked about this when it comes to the demonic realm, where you have Hollywood talking more about Christian issues than some churches do. And that they're not doing it the right way, but it becomes problematic when that sort of dynamic is happening, because here's the other thing with this, that when you have a healthy middle ground view on miracles and all of these issues, this is something that actually points people to evidence for God if it's handled the right way. So when we're not talking about it, when we're ignoring it, when we're pushing past it, or when we're making it weird, we're actually creating an impediment, I think, for people to see evidence of God in these sorts of moments, in these sorts of healings. So yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think we have to have a healthy handling of this. And I think you see that in this film with these stories, that most of these people, they're journeying through. I mean, they're going to all sorts of different prayer events, and some people might be comfortable with some of those events, some people might not. But the reality is they're going wherever they can within the Christian realm to find healing. And I find it incredibly fascinating that it took so many years for them. It's like, what was God teaching people? That's a whole other podcast conversation, during the journey to seek the miracle.
Absolutely, 100%. And people know I'm pretty opinionated about NDEs. And, well, I don't mean to insult myself. I'm just saying that I have a very clear stand on them, that, I agree that people have them and have visions, and I don't take experiences away from people. And, the Apostle Paul said, when he had that vision and humbly spoke about himself in the third person, said, I will not boast or rely upon it. And I was really, it just touched my heart. First of all, the story in this movie with an NDE. And for me to say that, that's where I'm going with this. For me to say that, it's saying a lot. And I pray that people would be as moved as I am. And I am so excited to see this going out there, to point people to our Lord, because the devil is extremely current and active, Billy. I mean, he's all over documentaries. He's all over Netflix. He's all over cinema, right?
Yeah.
So we need to stand up and put this out there and use what the Lord has provided for us today in these modern times. And we need to be doing that. So what's the future for the supernatural?
Yeah.
Investigating the supernatural. What's the future for it?
Oh, so right now, if people want to see this, they can go to cbn.com/supernatural, and you can stream it, get DVDs. If that's, a lot of people like DVDs still, but you can stream it there, get DVDs. And, right now, this project was supposed to be a TV series. And I've talked to you about this. And when we initially planned it, it was going to be 3 parts: miracles, angels and demons, and heaven and hell. And when it came to the filming, as soon as we got in the field, we realized we can't tell these miracle stories in 30 minutes. This is a full feature film. So this has grown into what we hope will be a 3-part, at least, feature film series. And the next one will be angels and demons. And so really looking at stories and evidence and the discussion within the Christian realm around that. And so we don't know when that will happen, but we have filmed a fair amount of the interviews, actually almost all of them, for that film already. So we are deep on that work, following the same investigative sort of mantra that we used in this project.
And in case people aren't aware of your background, which I think gives you so much credibility, Billy, for this role, you have a background investigating the demonic as well. You wrote Playing with Fire. You have a podcast as well, Playing with Fire.
Yep.
But you are aware of the demonic, and you're aware as a Bible believing, faith filled Christian man of our Lord. You're a fair person to go into this, the discernment, and having that aspect of journalism, which I love. And I've said to you, you've taught me so much, just how to go into conversations and be fair coming into them, and just like kind of step back and look at things from both sides a little bit. So I think that they couldn't have done a better job selecting you to investigate this and bring this out to us. You have a heart for the Lord, Billy Hallowell. I am so excited. I love the movie. Guys, go to cbn.com/supernatural. Watch it today. If you have your DVD player, go for it. But definitely watch it and share it with people, especially people that are lost right now and hopeless and downtrodden. And always go to the Bible. Billy, thank you so much. And let's do this again.
Thank you. Can't wait.
Okay, sounds good. Hey, everybody, remember to share the gospel today and your testimony, because you have nothing to lose, but that soul has everything to gain. See you next time on X Psychic Save. Don't forget to like and share. God bless you.